On this week's episode, we're talking with Heidi Herman. She talks about eating well is the fuel for your life. Her lineage goes back to Iceland, where meals are literally farm to table. Heidi's new cookbook came from creating recipes that allowed her to eat more vegetables. Have your cake and eat your vegetables too. Experiment and lean into vegetables you like. And if you're in South Dakota and you don't lock your car, you will eventually find zucchini in your back seat. And now to a delightful conversation with Heidi. Hello and welcome to the podcast, Eat Better Food Today. I'm your host, Ken Coonahan, and I'm excited to be sharing insights and why we believe that health and longevity begins with the food we eat. The goal of this podcast is to inspire, educate, and enable folks to live a healthier life and do it affordably. My wife and I have been on this journey for over 11 years and continue to work on it every single day. Percent of the profits from this podcast we put towards child hunger through my Santee Foundation, with an initial focus on the poor suburb in America, East Cleveland, Ohio, which is a place we've been putting together a center there to help out in that neighborhood. As a reminder, please subscribe to, review, and rate this podcast. Subscriptions are the lifeblood of any podcast. Our sponsor is Cleveland Kitchen. Think of Cleveland Kitchen as providing easy gut health with their fermented foods, which means better brain health with just 2 forkfuls a day. On this episode, we're grateful to have Heidi Herman. Her mantra is, which we'll talk about here in a second, keep moving, keep doing, keep living. That's how she's learned to live her life. During her 30 years as a telecommunications consultant, writing was an intricate part of every day. In 2017, she co-authored a cookbook, Homestyle Icelandic Cooking, for American kitchens with her mother, and won a U.S. category in the Gourmand World Cookbook Awards that year. So welcome, Heidi.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here today.
Happy to have you. So my first question is always my icebreaker question. I get interesting answers too. So it's what you had for breakfast this morning.
I had my coffee, banana, and a protein shake.
Okay. See, so that's healthy. That's great. Good start to a day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and then the second question is kind of your journey. I've read the intro in your cookbook here and some of your profile, but you can just talk about how you've gotten to writing this cookbook or journey to that. And I know that the opening line here is, I hate vegetables.
Yeah, it is.
Interesting way to open up. So,
well, I like honesty. And it definitely sets the stage for anybody looking at this cookbook. It is something that I have tried for many years to increase my nutritional intake. Obviously, we all know that good, healthy living, good vegetables, good nutrition, whole foods, fruits, eating well is important to your health, not only physically, but mentally, emotionally. It impacts so many different aspects of your physical being that you can't just rely on supplements to keep yourself healthy. You have to eat well. It's the fuel of your life. I did not start out my life eating all that well. I'm never going to blame my mom, but I can honestly say when I was a child, she had been an Icelandic immigrant. She married my father in World War II and came over to the United States. And there's definitely a different culture at play here. In Iceland, they are able to maintain excellent health because they have a lot of fresh foods, fish, dairy, a lot of, literal farm to table because it is all their farm. And coming to the United States, we have a lot of different offerings, especially in produce, but we don't have near the fresh ocean fare unless you live on the coast. I was born and raised in Illinois. And so we ate a lot of meat, proteins, and all of our side dishes, our vegetables, tended to be potatoes, corn, maybe green peas now and then. And I just never grew up eating any vegetables. In my 20s, I was definitely a carboholic. I thought pasta and rice was core food groups, and those were my favorite things. But as I aged and getting through my 30s and 40s and kind of dealing with various different health issues, it became really apparent that setting yourself up for success, beginning at the nutritional level in what you eat, that means everything. And since we work so much on living into our 70s, 80s, 90s, both my parents were over 90 when they passed. And if I want to live that long, I want every day to be full of vitality and that I'm physically capable of doing everything. So having that good nutrition, it's crucial.
Absolutely. And the lifespan in the US the last couple of years actually started to go the other direction, not up but down, because people are not, they're exposed to a lot of unhealthy foods that make you want to eat more of those unhealthy foods.
Exactly, exactly. So I think the journey on this cookbook really has been, it started out just me personally changing my eating habits and trying to incorporate more healthy food. After I moved to South Dakota, I learned to have a garden and, process a lot of fresh veggies myself. So that made a difference, although it really highlighted how many vegetables were out there that I didn't like. So it started by me altering a lot of recipes. I found a fabulous recipe for chicken enchiladas, but it had big chunks of tomatoes and onions and peppers and all types of things that I really had a hard time. And I think a lot of people do, whether it's the texture, sometimes it's the flavor, and sometimes it's the chunks, where it's not that you have a problem with the flavor of, say, salsa. A lot of people like to dip a chip in there, and as long as it's got the flavor of the little bit of liquid on there, that's fine. But to scoop up chunks of the tomatoes and peppers, for some people, that's the flavor's just a little too intense. So following that thought line, I just puree a lot of things and then I incorporate it back and I cook my chicken in, the pureed vegetables instead of the chunks. And then it becomes a lot more palatable for me.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah, my kids demand when I make a tomato sauce that it's pureed, not chunky. So
Mm-hmm.
everybody's got their own. Yeah, I mean, everybody has their own taste.
Exactly. And then I found out once you start pureeing some of these veggies, especially when you get into the high nutrition and high flavor ones like kale and spinach, once those are pureed, you really can incorporate them into a tremendous amount of dishes where you can't taste it at all. In the cookbook, I have a vanilla cake recipe that has spinach in it. It's a beautiful green, and you really can't taste it at all. But it's nice knowing if you're going to indulge in a dessert and in a treat to have it a little healthier.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I mean, that's bonus.
Cake and eat your vegetables too.
Exactly. I like that. Have your cake and eat your vegetables too.
So, can you talk a little bit more about your mantra? So, this keep moving, keep doing, keep living mantra that you have?
Yes, actually, that one, again, that harkens back to my mom. She wrote her first book. She was my inspiration on writing. And she wrote her first book when she was 88 years old, self published it. And that kind of inspired me to write children's books based on her memoir of growing up in Iceland and some of the philosophy and folklore and lifestyle there. After that, I wrote a couple of children's books following up to that. And she wrote a young adult fiction. And we started doing a lot of Scandinavian events together. And that's what led to our cookbook. And she commonly heard people say, "Wow, you are just so active for your age. Wow, you look so good for your age." And just every comment was followed up with, "For your age." And she was like, "I don't understand. Everybody can do anything they want to do at any age." And so when she was 93, she did a year long of 93 and new to me. My mom heard all the time about how amazing it was that she was active at her age. So she did this year long 93 and new to me to prove that you're never too old for something new. And it was 93 events, activities that she had never experienced before at the age of 93.
Nice.
And so the follow-up book that I did was sharing that lifestyle philosophy and how to embrace that in your own life. So that idea of keep moving, keep doing, keep moving forward, that comes from an Icelandic expression that is Áfram með smjörið. It literally translates to on with the butter, meaning forge ahead, keep going, keep doing what you're doing. And I just thought that nails everything. Everything that you might want to do in life, just embracing that passion as you get older, as you retire from, maybe full-time work and look for new things to do. That's what you have to do is just keep moving forward, keep embracing life, and keep finding new things to do.
Yeah, there's so much to experience out there, whether you're in South Dakota, Illinois, and Ohio here, Europe, Asia. I mean, there's just experiences everywhere, neighborhoods, and just the city you live in.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely.
So, do you work with anybody else besides your mom when you put this in this cookbook? I noticed you had like a health and wellness certified health and wellness individual that helped you here.
Yes. Yeah, I thought that was really important for this particular cookbook because I am certainly not an expert. I am not a professional chef, lifelong cook. I bought my first cookbook when I was in fourth grade. I love to cook, but I am not professionally trained. And I certainly don't have the insights into nutrition and food and how that really impacts our bodies.
Hmm.
And my last book, On with the Butter, I put a chapter in there about using food to increase activity and vitality as far as things to do, like going to a farmer's market and choosing a new vegetable that you've never had before and researching and preparing it, just that incorporating activity with food. And in this one, I wanted to go a little deeper and get the insights and support of a trained nutritionist. So she's board certified and she really helped evaluate the recipes, kind of look at different things, what vegetables are really important and how they impact your health. So I really enjoyed kind of teaming up with her and having her contribution to this cookbook.
Yeah, and I'm going to open up the book here, but so she had like 10 awesome reasons to eat more vegetables, which I thought was
Exactly.
a
Yes.
cool thing to look at. Multivitamin from nature, you kind of talk about you can't live on supplements, which I agree with 100%. You can't. There's some people I've listened to on podcasts, they're doing like 100 supplements a day. I mean, it's just, that's too much. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot you can get from fruits and vegetables like you're discussing here. Talk about your gut. That's come up in a lot of conversations, things that people just starting to learn about. I guess this is a better way to phrase that.
Yeah, once I started researching in that particular area, I think I share in the introduction of this cookbook that I've struggled with inflammation for a number of years. And I've had different doctors say, oh, you have to take pain medication, just deal with the symptoms, or, try ice packs or try more exercise, all types of different things. But it is really surprising how when you look at what you eat and the types of things that that triggers in your system that actually just lead to so much inflammation and kind of cascades to a number of other issues as well.
Absolutely. Yep. And I think the keep things moving is important, especially I'll say once you get over the age of 50. I think that's some very sage advice there.
Absolutely. My mom used to say, if you don't move it, you will lose it. She said she never wants to be like an old car that was parked out in the middle of a field and it's just going to slowly rust day after day if you don't do it. But if you drive it every day, kind of keeps everything lubricated and moving along. At our essence, we are a machine. We're an
Hmm.
organic machine, and it's
Yeah,
important.
that's good advice. Can you put that together with your mom and what she did with 93 activities at the age of 93? And that's a nice little prescription there. Heart heroes, so lowering cholesterol and blood pressure. I mean, that's extremely important on the cholesterol side. Everybody just thinks they can just take a statin and be done with it. But if you're eating some of the things you should be eating from a vegetable standpoint, it has the same effect.
Exactly, exactly. And again, you have to be aware when you take a supplement or medication of any kind, you potentially will be having a side effect where now you're going to take another medication to treat the side effect of the first medication, and it's a slippery slope.
Yeah, there was an ad. I was watching the football game last night, and they had an ad for a cancer drug, and the number of side effects. I mean, the commercial was maybe 60 seconds. The number of side effects was 30 seconds long. It's just,
Mhm.
I wouldn't take that. I'd rather eat something.
Exactly, exactly. In a lot of cases, I've heard similar commercials where the side effects are actually worse than the underlying condition that it
Yeah,
was designed to treat. This
exactly. One
Yeah,
caused death. That was one of the side effects.
exactly. I think if I have, some itchy skin or maybe a dry eye or a painful joint, I think I'd rather have that than all the cascading. Yeah.
And then it also helps. So chronic diseases are on the rise in the U.S. They've been on the rise. I just read something this morning that deaths from chronic diseases back like in the 50s was like around 3%. Now it's like up in the 60% range. So it's definitely going in the wrong direction. So more approaches like your approach here are important.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah. Eating healthy is just it's the core of everything.
Absolutely. Talk a little bit about, so when you were researching, you talked about this a little bit, but On with Butter, that book, that started you getting you curious and educated about nutrition and how important it is and why we should care about it.
Yeah, that one, there were so many surprising things in that. And when I approached that book, it was 12 chapters looking at different aspects of life to increase or just maintain vitality as you age. And it might be, something as simple as doing puzzles or games for keeping your mental sharpness. But like I said, one of the chapters had to do with nutrition, things like what you eat impacting your cardiovascular health, impacting your gut, impacting even your moods and your emotional status. It was so surprising. And like many authors, when you go down to the rabbit hole of research, I think I must have had enough research material for 10 books just on that one topic. And I pared it down to just one chapter in that, but there were so many different things that I researched having to do with food that stayed with me. And it impacted my outlook not only on what I eat, but how I prepare food and what ingredients I choose and how I mix them together. That it really did change the way I approach food and I approach meals overall.
Nice. So in your book here, you do have a nice little section called Veggie Buying and Storing. So you talk about the vegetables, you talk about how to store it, and then you talk about complementary things.
Yeah, that I intended this as sharing for other people who might be in the same boat as I am. I want to eat healthy, but I don't like the taste of so many vegetables. So the challenge becomes as an adult, okay, I want to be responsible. I want to eat these veggies, but how do I still enjoy the food that I'm eating?
Hmm.
So to do that, I had to buy more vegetables. Okay. And like so many people out there, you have the best of intentions when you go to the grocery store and you load up on all these great veggies and you bring them home and you put them in the refrigerator. And a week later, you grab the plastic bag and the insides are all slimy and you waited too long and it goes straight in the trash. So the amount of food waste we have tends to be astronomical
Yes.
simply because we don't properly store them and preserve them in order to use them later. Um, and we have the best of intentions, but sometimes if you don't know the best way to actually store them, especially if they're ones that maybe you've never used before. I know before working on some of these recipes, I was not a big fan of kohlrabi. I definitely had to look up the first time I bought it, what do I do with this? How do I handle it? How do I process it and store it? Many fresh vegetables are going to have your basic lifespan in the refrigerator, maybe 3 to 5 days. You can extend those by either some of them you keep in the plastic, some of them you want to take out of the plastic bag, some of them you want to keep moist, some of them you want to keep dry, some you want to keep on the counter. And unless you know exactly what to do with each one, you're not going to really be able to optimize using it. So I thought that was an important piece to put in there, is because I don't want to encourage people to buy veggies that are simply going to go bad on the counter or in the refrigerator. So, and then being able to process them for long-term storage. Some of my favorite things to do are to, especially when it goes on sale. That's so nice. You see fresh spinach, and, maybe you can buy 10 pounds of it for a great price. But what do you do with 10 pounds of spinach, right? So I lightly steam it, run it through the food processor to puree it. And then I literally use ice cube trays and put it in there, freeze them, and then I can just store them in Ziploc bags. And they're pre-portioned. Now I know exactly how many ounces are there, and I can just pull them out and pop them in whatever dish that I'm making, and it makes it very fast and easy. And I've made use of lots of spinach.
Nice, nice. That is a good use for spinach. I've done that with like pesto or tomato sauce. I've never done it with a whole vegetable, I guess, or a pureed vegetable. Yeah.
I puree a lot of vegetables.
So plants, and there's a lot of debate. So are you a vegetarian, or are you just, I mean, this is a vegetable cookbook, but
It's a vegetable cookbook where I do incorporate it into lots of things, especially using meat for many of the main dishes. I probably lean more towards carnivore in my taste preferences, but I do work very hard at being balanced across all types of food. I don't subscribe to, oh, I want to be keto, I want to be completely sugar free or carb free or whatever it is. I definitely think balanced is a good healthy way to go, as long as you're using quality ingredients and staying away from chemicals and preservatives. I think those can have a really negative effect on your body, your processes.
absolutely. How about exercise? How about adding exercise into a diet? A lot of people.
Absolutely. Yeah. As a matter of fact, when I first met Rhonda, it was because she was my trainer. I was
Uh,
recovering from rotator cuff surgery, and I definitely needed some help regaining my strength. And so I went to her, and she was able to really help me focus on not only strength building, but overall endurance and stretching, and really improve my overall fitness and just that capacity to do more. Because if you tend to be even semi sedentary, you're a lot less likely to just jump up and say, oh, I'm going to go play pickleball today, or I'm going to go do a 5K walk. I want to join this charity and do this. It becomes very difficult to just go from sedentary to boom, I'm moving.
it does. Absolutely.
Yeah, having that constant movement, and um it it helps digest the food that you eat. It helps to use up all the excess carbs for like your immediate energy, and it just helps your whole body stay in motion and in sync and operate the way it was designed to.
Absolutely. And I think as people get older, they just say, well, I'm getting too old to pick an exercise thing, even take a walk, go to the gym, ride a bicycle. Doesn't sound like your mother had that problem, which is fantastic.
Oh, no, I was gonna say my mother, yeah, there were times that she went beyond what she was physically capable of. Her doctor told her that she had to stop jumping rope on concrete because she was getting microfractures in her spine. So, yeah, she thought she could do everything. So, yes, being aware of what might be beyond your limits, very important. It's always good to work with a trainer or a coach, or your doctor or somebody that can help guide you on where your limits really are, and how to safely build up your limits and your endurance, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I started out with a personal trainer when I talk about 11 years ago, about 11 years ago, but now I've learned enough. I don't use him anymore, but I've could kind of continue what he's taught me over the many years.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's kind of one of the things he teaches you how to use equipment, and also kind of like you say, your limits. Make sure you don't overdo it and hurt anything in the process.
Exactly. Yeah. And there are so many things that you can do without equipment. Just
Yes.
the
Yes.
benefit of a daily walk the fresh air, your vitamin D from sunshine, and just the physical activity. I read a Harvard study that said people who interact with green spaces outside live an average of like 12 years longer, no
Hmm.
matter where you live in the country. Just that outdoor fresh air interaction with green spaces makes that much difference on your life. It is vastly more important than what people think.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. I mean, we try to get out, my wife and I try to get out to a park as much as possible to walk the dog, run with the dog, etc. So I think, yeah, and you can just do that daily in any neighborhood. Just, I mean, get out and take a walk, even if it's 10 minutes. I mean,
Exactly.
it's good to do that after you have a nice meal because it kind of helps with digestion and kind of, moving things through your body.
Absolutely.
So what would you say a couple of your favorite recipes are that are in this book?
Well, there are so many that I have because honestly, many of these recipes did come about because I adapted recipes that I came across or from other cookbooks that I like. I am a massive cookbook collector. So many of these recipes I make on a regular basis. So often for breakfast, and I'll make muffins of all sorts, but the banana muffins are some of our favorite. On the main dishes, I make Salisbury steak quite often. I like that one. And then on those nights when you just want to do something really fast, sloppy Joe is always very good. I'm also a fan of crock pot recipes. The beef bourguignon, it's definitely one of my favorites. I love making that. And I think I have another. Oh yeah, the po' boys, the sandwiches where I can double my veggie influence by having some with the meat and then serving those on spinach buns. So I can have some veggies in both pieces of that. That's always good.
Nice. A spinach bun?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's a really nice yeast bakery style bun, but very obvious green flecks in it. But when you taste it, you're not getting that overwhelming spinach flavor to it. And depending on what toppings you might put on it, you can have like an everything bagel spice or poppy seeds or, different things on top. And that'll also change the flavor a little bit depending on what you like. And that's what's nice about when you start experimenting with different recipes. My personal taste is not going to be what your personal taste is or
Hmm.
what someone else's is. Maybe I like things a little sweet and tangy. Somebody else might like spicy a little bit better. Somebody else doesn't like sugar at all. And that's where you can start experimenting. You alluded to at the beginning of the cookbook, I have a section where I suggest different flavors that can either complement or
Hmm.
overwhelm because you can take them either way. A vegetable like zucchini is a great example. You can shred zucchini and put it in zucchini bread and
Hmm.
make it very sweet. You can back off the sugar in that. Most recipes, you can reduce probably up to a third of the sugar without impacting it too much.
Okay.
Play around with different things. But I've also taken zucchini and sliced it up, add it to apple pie. It adds a little bit, and when they're sliced, it kind of blends in with the apples. And you don't your taste buds and the texture, you don't really notice it because it's like an apple, but you're increasing that nutritional value of something that's normally a dessert. So that's nice. Other times you can take that same zucchini, you can slice it up and put it with some other root vegetables, maybe some garlic, onions, and turn it savory. So it's more of a side dish that has some spice to it instead of the sweetness. So there's a lot of them that you can take them in different directions, which is great.
And I think that's a good, I mean, the recipes, any recipe is a guidebook. It's not meant to, when I first started cooking many years ago, I was like a scientist. If it said, I did exactly what the recipe said. But now, to your point, you can modify it based on your tastes and kind of modify it too based on some of the advice you give. Here are complementary things you can do with a particular vegetable. Pick one, pick two, pick all, whatever you want to do and make it your own recipe.
Exactly. Exactly. I always try to follow a new recipe. Exactly. precisely as it's written the first time. And then after that, I can say, well, it wasn't bad, but I think for me, I'd like to, add this over here or that over there. And sometimes a recipe might have a little too much cinnamon for my taste, and maybe I want to add a little bit more cardamom or ginger and take that flavor profile in a little bit different direction. But that's what we all need to do, is instead of trying to find recipes that fit in exactly to our tastes, you can take a recipe that is either easy to make or has the ingredients in it that you want, and then just change it up so it better suits either the ingredients you have available or what your taste is or who you're trying to feed.
Absolutely. And I mean, zucchini is a very versatile vegetable that I don't think a lot of people know what to do with, to be honest. I mean, other than maybe slicing it, sauteing it, but I've never made zucchini bread until about 3 weeks ago. And
Wow, okay.
it's delicious.
Yeah,
So,
it's one of my favorites.
yeah,
There's another one that I have in the cookbook it's a flatbread with shredded zucchini as a layer on top of it, and then cherry tomatoes, and I make it as a pizza. And
nice.
having that layer of zucchini in there, because of how finely it's shredded, it just sort of melts and melds in with everything else, and you don't have that hard crunch or a big bite of zucchini, but you definitely have that little bit of texture, and obviously you have that little bit of a nutritional bump.
Nice, nice. So, first step, if somebody wants to start eating more vegetables, if they're like you and hate eating vegetables, what would you say a good first step would be for somebody to start heading in a positive direction with veggies?
I would say start with the food that you already like.
Hmm.
And the easiest way to incorporate vegetables is start with either pureeing or run it through a food processor and mince, dice, anything like that. Especially with things like soups and stews, they cook in so easily that you're really not going to be able to taste them. If you can, experiment with different ones, if you've never tasted certain vegetables, give it a shot, try it in its pure true form. You might like it, but if you truly don't, then just find ways to incorporate it into what you do like without overwhelming it too much. For instance, a lot of people will add spinach to lasagna, but they tend to do it either fresh or they steam it just a little bit and then put a layer in. So when you're eating it, sometimes you have a little bit of a chunk of it or it comes across a little slimy. It happens. It's sort of the nature of spinach. So I do that same thing, except after I lightly steam it. I don't want it to get super watery, but then I throw it in the food processor and I puree it so that when I mix it into the ricotta cheese, it becomes very smooth. It changes the color just a little bit, but you get all that nutrition in there without the chunks. And that might be an easier way to eat it and make good use of it.
Nice. Yeah, and I think too, you mentioned farmers markets early on. I think if you buy local, fresh things from a farmer's market or grocery store that carries a lot of local vegetables, I think those vegetables are going to taste better in any of these recipes that you have in this book.
Absolutely. The one thing about vegetables, especially from the grocery store, it's been so long since they've been harvested. The
Hmm.
longer a vegetable sits, the stronger that sharpness is going to be, a bitter taste sometimes. That's definitely going to come out the older the vegetable is. But if you can get it at the farmer's market and get it a lot fresher from its pick date, you're going to find it's not nearly as bitter.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we bought some corn at the farmer's market like a week ago, and then we bought some a couple of days ago. And the stuff we bought a week ago was sweet corn, but it loses that taste and it loses that nutritional value over time. It can't
It
be
does.
stored indefinitely unless you do
Absolutely.
something like you said, puree it and then freeze it so you're getting it while it's still fresh.
Exactly. Exactly. The only one that I have found that I tend to wait on to pick when I grow them in the garden is peppers.
Okay.
I wait till they're red. They have a little more nutritional value in them that way.
Hmm.
And the flavor is not as bitter to me. I
Yeah.
still puree them. I'm still going to puree them.
I think they're sweeter too when they get to that red color.
Yes.
So, talk about cooking at home? Because a lot of people, I was with a group of 20 somethings yesterday. They're helping me with a project at school, and DoorDash seems to be a thing, or a drive through seems to be a thing. People, my opinion, younger people seem to have lost the skill of knowing how to cook things.
Yeah, it is difficult when you're busy and
Mhm.
you're at work and then you have social obligations, and by the time you come home, you really don't wanna spend a lot of time
Right.
trying to prepare a meal. It does take some planning because if you're going to use fresh ingredients, then you need to have them available.
Hmm.
And if you have a protein in there, for instance, maybe you're using ground beef or ground turkey or steaks or whatever you might be using as a protein, if you're coming home to those items being frozen,
Hmm.
that that creates a problem. So it is a little bit of pre-planning to have those things available. The actual preparation of it, that does not have to be a major undertaking. I think some of these food ingredient delivery services, are on the right track. If you can get that box delivered with, a nice little recipe and all the
Right.
ingredients prepackaged in there, and you can actually make this healthy meal, that's fabulous. But you can do the same thing using cookbooks or online resources or different things like that. For instance, sloppy joes. Very quick and easy thing, probably 15 minutes. Brown your ground beef, add your fresh tomatoes and some of your spices. It's a great place to put diced carrots, diced celery, onion, or leeks. I always like using leeks instead of onions just because there's a better nutritional pop there. But there's all types of things that you can put in something like a sloppy joe with your green peppers, and if you wanted to, you can get crazy and add some pureed spinach if you want to. I tend to say with a more traditional type of veggies in something like that. Other ones might be some of your skillet dinners. I often will make sliced sausage with kohlrabi over fettuccine. That's one of the recipes that I have in the book. Or skillet ziti. That's definitely something that is really easy to add your tomatoes to, add your kale or spinach or whatever you want to add to that. And they are very fast and easy just to make it skillet top.
Yeah, and if you make it a large enough quantity, then you can have it for 2 or 3 nights. You don't have to just make it for one night.
Yeah, leftovers are a beautiful thing.
Yeah, yeah, and when you're using spices and different vegetables, it melds the flavors together. It actually tastes better the second day.
It does. It really, really does. Yeah, for sure.
So that's a way to kind of beat if you got a busy week, make a big batch and have it a couple times.
Absolutely.
So, and you mentioned you have a garden at home. Can you kind of talk about your garden that you have?
I am a work in progress when it comes to being a gardener, for sure.
I think
Um,
everybody is. I mean,
yeah,
we're not professionals.
yeah. Um, I'm often behind on my weeding and some of my gardening tasks, but I usually grow a couple of different types of tomatoes. I like cherry tomatoes. Romas are very nice for sauces, and then just your basic big boy tomatoes are so adaptable to so many different recipes. I like growing jalapenos, green peppers, or sweet peppers. I've grown onions on occasion, but they're just so easy to buy in bulk at the grocery store that growing onions is quite an undertaking. Same with potatoes.
Hmm.
Although I do have an affinity for Japanese sweet potatoes. They're not necessarily available at very many stores. You have to go to specialty stores, but they're surprisingly easy to grow.
They're also really
Um,
good.
yeah, I definitely like those. I've grown okra, but that is definitely one of those that I I can't find a good way to make it. I've tried so many different things, and I am still working to crack the code on how I like okra. Many things are just so easy to grow in the garden. Zucchini is one of those things. I know here in South Dakota, we always say, we're recording this in September now, we always say this is the time of year where no matter what, no matter where you go, you always lock your car doors. not for safety reasons. It's because when you come out of the post office or the grocery store or something, you're gonna find zucchini in your back seat. It happens. I have had trouble with birds eating my seeds when I plant my zucchini. So this year I decided to plant 6 zucchini plants, and wouldn't you know it, the birds left all those seeds alone, and now I have 6 zucchini plants that are all being very, very prolific in their product, so I have many zucchinis this year.
Yeah, I think that's something. I think we have some in our garden too, some zucchinis. Yeah, they do, and they did a tomato festival here a couple weeks ago, and they're going to do a squash festival here in another couple weeks.
Yeah. Squash is definitely one of my favorites to work with. Spaghetti squash is a good substitute for spaghetti if you want to incorporate some of that. Like acorn squash is very nice, and I use some of that even in some of my baking. The cookies and butternut squash is fabulous with cookies or breads and things like that. It's got a really nice nutty flavor to it, so it's easy to work with.
It is easy to work with, yeah. So, any final thoughts you want to leave our listeners with before I ask you about your recipe?
I would say if you would like to incorporate more veggies, just be open, experiment, and be okay with saying, hey, those 3 I just don't like no matter what I do. Don't try to force yourself to eat it. There are plenty of other veggies that have the same nutritional value, no matter which veggie it is that you don't like. You can always find something else to replace that. And if you can find a way to prepare it that you enjoy it, you're going to eat more of it and you're just going to benefit overall. So don't force it if you hate it. Lean into what you can tolerate.
Very good advice. So, what recipe did you bring? So, kind of the reason I asked this question at the end is to, again, to encourage people to cook at home, encourage people that you don't have to go through a drive-through frequently during the week. I mean, occasionally is fine, and you can make good, healthy food at home easily. So,
You absolutely can.
yeah,
Yeah, the one I wanted to share is the Salisbury steak
okay,
because I personally make that one so often, and it really is so easy, and we had touched on the topic of leftovers.
yes,
The Salisbury steak, when I serve it, when I first make it and serve it as a meal, a lot of times I'll serve it with mashed potatoes or even mashed sweet potatoes. But left over, it just makes such a fabulous sandwich. And so that way you're not eating it the same way every single time. So, yeah, I like that. And it's easy to make. You're starting out with just basic ground beef, and the ingredients you're adding into it are simple: breadcrumbs and Worcestershire sauce and ketchup and garlic and onion, mixing that in and then having a nice gravy. And the gravy is where I like to incorporate my pureed spinach and add that to the brown gravy. And it just incorporates all together with a little more of that Worcestershire sauce. And most people don't have access to it. So I say, add the kitchen bouquet or some type of seasoning like that for
hmm
your gravy. Personally, I like to use a hickory flavored vinegar, and it just really takes it to the next level for me.
nice. I like red wine vinegar in mine and dishes like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
See, that's one of those things that you can just tweak that recipe just a little bit, and that's a great idea.
nice, very nice. And you typically can make that in what, 30 minutes, 20 minutes,
30 minutes or less.
30 minutes?
100%. Yeah, because you're preparing your mix of your ground beef, and then you just sort of cook those almost like hamburgers on a skillet. Then you take that off, and then you're adding in your ingredients for your gravy, and then put it back together for about 5 minutes and serve it with some mashed potatoes or French fries or whatever side dishes you like. So definitely a 30 minutes or less.
Nice. Yeah, I'm working on my wife on the gravy side. When we got married, she was not a gravy fan, but it's growing on her.
Yeah, there's so many different things that you can do with
Yeah.
gravies and sauces, and it can just really change how a dish tastes.
Yes. Yes. Has a nice little, nice flavor to it if you do it right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Another area to experiment in.
Exactly. Which I love to do too. So.
Mhm.
So Heidi, thank you very much for being on the show. We'll post links for the in the show notes for your cookbook and some of your background information so people can
Appreciate
access
that.
that. And wish you all the best. And thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. I appreciate
Yeah.
it.
All right. Thanks, Heidi.
Have a great
Have a
day.
great day. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, my sponsor is Cleveland Kitchen, the leader in fresh fermented foods. Try Cleveland Kitchen's crunchy and delicious krauts, kimchi, and pickles, packed with probiotics to support your gut health while elevating your meals from ordinary to extraordinary. Cleveland Kitchen, where taste meets wellness. Find it in the produce or deli section of your local grocery store or visit clevelandkitchen.com for more information. And please follow the show every week where you listen to podcasts or on YouTube. Leave comments below or on my website, Eat Better Food Today.